It's important for us to know how we're reaching people and how we can reach more people who might be interested in these programs. This program is part of our ongoing Cocktails, Conversations, and COVID series. We started it last spring. We never dreamed it would be going on this long, but we are happy to be able to have such quality presenters to be able to continue offering these programs. Alexandra Armstrong is a founding member of Georgetown Village, and we are very pleased that she is. She grew up in Georgetown and spent most of her life there. She's been working in the investment field for more than 40 years. And in 1977, Alex was the first person to earn the Certified Financial Planner certification in Washington, D.C., which is quite a distinction. Previously, Alex was a senior vice president of a New York Stock Exchange firm, and she founded her own financial planning firm and broker dealage in 1983. Alexandra has also been active in local communities, and she was the first and only female president of the Boy Scouts of America, which I thought was a fun thing to learn about you, Alex. In addition to that, Alex was active in on the board for Reading is Fundamental and is past president and currently a member of the Women's Forum of Washington, D.C. Throughout her career, Alexandra has been the recipient of many professional awards and achievements. Mary Donahue has a successful psychology practice in the Washington, D.C. area, and she's focused on families in crisis and women's issues. Mary has a background in education as well and taught for many years before going into psychology. After losing her husband suddenly, Mary worked with Alexandra to get her financial life in shape. And Mary's quoted as saying that Alexandra inherited her. So this is how their relationship started, and they formed a close bond. They are good friends as well as being co-authors. Their first book was published in 1993 and was titled On Your Own, A Woman's Passage to Emotional and Financial Well-Being. That book, by the way, is now in its fifth printing, and I urge you, if you haven't received a copy and read it, to do so. It's an excellent book. And tonight they're here to talk about their newest book called Your Next Chapter. Before they begin, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to let you know that we have muted all participants except for the panelists, and you will have time after the program to ask questions. If you are more comfortable, you are welcome to put your questions in the chat box and I will read them for you, or we will unmute you to answer the questions yourselves. Mary and Alex, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it, and I look forward to your presentation.
Well, thank you, Lynn and Anna. We're really happy to be here. And we're particularly with the wonderful job you've done with the Georgetown Village. One of the things we mentioned in our book is one of the housing arrangements. If you want to stay in place, the villages is a good way to do it. And certainly you are a sterling example of how successful a program like that can be. So I was delighted to be a founding member, and I still am a member, even though I'm living in Sarasota, Florida, because I want to make sure your work continues. Now, when you were talking about Mary and me being good friends, we've been good friends for 40 years, believe it or not. And the other day we were at lunch together and we were talking and we were sort of laughing because here we've written a book about retirement, but both of us are worked well past traditional retirement age at 65. And then we asked, well, why is that? Well, it's because both of us really love what we're doing. And fortunately, we're in a profession that permits us to do that, to keep on working. We might work less than we did, and I actually am now fully retired, but Mary's still in there doing it. So we thought there really was a room for, a book on this topic for women like us, busy women who like their career, but they want to keep working and they want to know more about retirement. And there really is a void out there. We looked around and tried to find a good book, but we found that there really wasn't anything that pertained to women and the challenges they were facing. And there really was a need for it. There are lots of financial books out there, general books about sort of, I won't say the Susie Orman type book, but something like that. But there was nothing specifically for women that also considered the emotional adjustment retirement. It's all very well to be financially able to retire, but the emotional component is so important. And so we divided the book into two parts. The first part is for the person just getting ready to retire, the 2 years before they're really thinking about retiring. And then the second part is when they've retired and they're adjusting to it from the woman's point of view. Mary, would you like to talk about the emotional a little?
Well, at the same lunch that Alex is mentioning to you, we were also talking about the changes that have occurred in women's lives over the past 75 years. So looking back 75 years ago, the majority of women were in the home, taking care of the family, managing the family's social activity and the household. Fast forward today, when they're in every profession out there and making marvelous contributions. So today, when they're thinking about the whole idea of retiring, in addition to the hat they wear at home, they're looking at what their lives have been like while they've been working. So as a result of working, they have a certain self-identity, they have a certain social network that they rely on. It provides cognitive stimulation. It contributes to their self-esteem. And at the point of retirement, all of these things come into play as to how are they going to mesh these new different aspects of their life as they move forward into retirement. So the emotional aspect here is critical and is often overlooked. As Alex said, that was one of the things we did discover, that there is nothing really out there that combines the two. Going back to what was mentioned about our previous book, which was for widows, in that book, we created 4 individuals to represent different concepts in widowhood that we thought needed to be addressed. And in this book, we have done something comparable to help individuals connect to all of the ideas we're talking about, which really combine the emotional and the financial.
Well, the major problem, well, I shouldn't say it's a good news, bad news, is longevity. Women do live longer, as most of us know, than men. On average, it's 5 years longer, but it's even more when you consider wealthier people, educated people live longer, and that's just the average of all the United States. And in addition, at age 75, the majority of women are single, whereas the majority of men are married. So our money has to last longer than for the man. And in some cases, we had less to start with because we may have interrupted our working career and not worked for the full period of time or had the level of income. So this, the other thing is, and Mary's well aware of this, 20% of the women live past age 90. I'm not saying that Mary's that age, she's not, but her mother lived to 106. So she's got the genes to go well past, they're talking about people living to 110, 120. So we do have to provide for this. And that's why when looking at retirement, you've got to plan for the long term.
Well, that's definitely true. And thinking about, by the way, the title of this is Conversations, and including now COVID. So COVID-19 is really a catalyst for a lot relative to retirement. Alex and I were ready to go to print just prior to when COVID-19 hit. And as a result of that, we made the decision that we would wait on publication because there was so much going on and so much everyone had to adjust to, so much anxiety about the present state of affairs that we made that decision. However, as we began to move into this, maybe a month or so, we realized that no, this is an ideal time to put this book out there because people that never thought they were going to have to look at retirement at a certain point in their lives now had to. For example, women in the medical profession in particular have now been forced to look at this issue based on how they feel about their personal safety in the work arena, how they feel their safety impacts their family. If they're also a caregiver for a family member, how does it impact that? And all of this when there has been no preparation. So it has really brought the need for retirement planning to the forefront. And in our book, we address what you can do whenever you start this process to get yourself to a better place.
That topic, my estate planning lawyer friends, one of whom is in the audience, has said there's been a rush to, oh my gosh, I don't have a will, I should do something about it. Of course, they should have done it a long time ago, but this is motivating them. One question that some people have asked us, is this for all women or just married women? Is it for all women, Mary?
Well, definitely not. It is absolutely not just for, well, it's definitely not for either married or single, it's for both. All women at this point in their lives are looking at a number of things. Emotions are emotions, feelings are feelings. Has nothing to do whether you're, well, it might, but doesn't necessarily have anything to do with whether you're married or single. So all women have feelings of what is this change in my life going to bring? All women are also looking at the potential sense of loss for something that has been in place for them for a number of time, for a long time, as let's just say, and how is it going to impact their life? So now, one thing I do want to say before Alex maybe chimes in here is that married women may have a somewhat different financial situation with which to deal as opposed to single women, but also not necessarily so. And one other point that I do think we should mention is that this is probably the first time that women coming to the age of retirement have funds in their own right, as well as just in those of their husband.
Well, as to illustrate the point, as we did with the Widow book, as we go through each chapter, we weave the stories of what prototypes to illustrate this. So we have a married woman, we have a single woman, we have a divorcee, we have a stay-at-home traditional wife whose corporate executive husband is retiring. And we follow them as they deal with getting ready to retire and then how they adjust. So there are a lot of things we can bring out during that period of time. For instance, the single person, we made a professor in Berkeley, California at UCLA. We called up some friends and got the statistics on what real estate cost, what retirement benefits would be for someone like that. And since she, this professor in our type, she's 70, fully absorbed in her job and really has not thought ahead to what she's going to do. She thinks she has enough money, but she's not really sure about that. She has a vague idea that she might move to San Francisco, but she doesn't know if she can afford that. And so she is working all this out. And so, and the main thing with her is, what is she going to do with her time? She's been working 24/7. Now, what is she going to do? So we follow her story as she goes through. And the married person.
Okay, the married woman in this case is a lawyer who has been doing estate planning law, married to a lawyer who finds out that his job of 25 years is no longer going to be available to him as a result of the sale of the company. Now, both of them had not paid any attention to retirement since they were in good health, and both of them thought they would continue working for quite some time. So now they're faced with, what are they going to do? They haven't paid any attention to this. They have to look at where they are in retirement. She has wanted to continue working, but now they're looking at, is he going to need to continue working after his retirement? And how is all of this going to impact the lifestyle they've enjoyed without paying any attention to this retirement factor? She's rather upset with herself, given her work, that she has not paid any attention to this. And we follow them through to see how they work things out. And it's one of the ways we feel that people can connect, women can connect to the issues and the ideas that we're addressing by making it more personal.
Yeah, we really wanted to make sure it wasn't just another how-to book that your eyes sort of glaze over and you say, oh yeah, about Social Security. We wanted to make it come to life, and as you follow these four women, and I hope, at least we've been told, we managed to accomplish that. One of the things people ask me is, when should a woman start planning for retirement? Well, the obvious answer is ideally the day they start working, but somehow that never really happens. A more practical answer is that usually in your 50s is when people start focusing. They think, oh my goodness, I'm going to retire in 15 years or 10 years or whatever. And I find in my business that it's not necessarily that they want to retire, they just want to know they can afford to retire. And so once they know that, of course, it's a little hard to put your arms around, but that is what we try to do. But as we said, this is not just a financial decision, it's also an emotional adjustment. Mary?
Well, on the emotional side, about the same time that you might be looking at where you are financially, it's really a good time to start thinking about when you retire, what might you want to be doing? And it's good to put these ideas down. You're not wedded to them, but it's a good starting place. In the past, people have told us that usually their top priority is travel. But at the moment, travel is totally on hold for the majority of people. So I don't know where that would rank. But in general, that was one of the number one things people wanted to do, and women in particular. But you also should put down things you have always wanted to do, like take a class in something you never thought you had time for, or to take on some physical activity that you've never done that you want to try out. Keep in mind, none of this is a process. None of this is absolutely something you must adhere to, because you're just thinking about it, and there are ideas that you can form. And when the time comes, you can give this more thought. Now, if you have a partner, it is a good idea to look at what you might want to do jointly and what you might want to do individually, because there is a place for both. And usually a relationship is better if the parties have both individual pursuits and joint ones. So looking at this as a moment of repurposing, and almost in a way of regeneration, I would say. Go for it.
That's true. The one major expense and major issue is housing. The question is, it's financial and emotional. We devote a whole chapter to housing and all the different options and sort of the pros and cons, and maybe actually we say try not to make a drastic change in the first year. Sort of like widowhood, don't sell your house or pay off your mortgage right away, but look at it and see. First basic question: can you afford to stay in your home if you want to? And then, do you want to downsize? Now, you might want to downsize for financial reasons, but you may want to downsize because you're tired of taking care of the yard and all the attendant issues, and you want to simplify your life. But the financial question, and one of the major things, and I'm sure many people in this audience have grappled with this, is should I stay in place, which is why you're a member of Georgetown Village, or instead, do I want to move to a retirement community? And if I do, what kind of retirement community? Do I want to be out in the suburbs, or do I want to be in town? And all the different arrangements. And again, we covered that in the book. But again, as I said, housing and where you live is also an emotional decision.
Well, on that side here, there are many, many factors to consider. Probably the main one for a lot of people is their proximity to significant family members and friends that have come to mean a great deal to them over the years. And that is something one really needs to assess, as well as what is the social life for either the individual or the couple. Are they involved in clubs? Are they involved in church activities? Are they involved in sports, in golf clubs, or whatever it is? And how are they going to feel about leaving that if they should decide to make a major move? On the emotional side, one needs to give serious thought to all of these issues before making any changes. And this is an area where I don't like to omit health, because dependent on one's health, if you are currently in treatment with a given physician or group, you have to give serious thought to, how am I going to leave this and go someplace else that is unknown? And wherever I'm going, what is going to be available to me in terms of medical care as I age? Because as we all know, we're going to need more of that as a result of the aging process. So there's a great deal to consider. And all of these things have emotional responses, which are normal. These are normal experiences. Loss, the sense of loss of what has been and going to something new exists. It can also be an exciting time. So it's blending the two and trying to find out what is best for you in your particular circumstances.
And that's really one thing that there is no magic formula. Everybody has an individual situation and individual variables. And so what we try to cover in the book is there's no one right way. Each person has their own solution. You might want to work part-time or full-time, depending on what your situation is. As we've said before, the relationship with a partner is important. Question is whether you might want to retire in Phoenix and he or she may want to retire in Miami. Who knows? And so you've got to work these things out, ideally ahead of time.
Well, one thing I just want to add to that is as we would suggest that if you're thinking about a major geographic move, you might want to rent something wherever you're considering moving to before you jump in and buy something. Recognize that making mistakes here, if they're not irrevocable, are not necessarily a bad thing. We learn from our mistakes. Maybe we thought, oh, hey, I'm really going to love doing this or that. And then we find out, oh, no, I don't even know why I was attracted to this in the first place. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. Feelings are not right or wrong. They exist, but you need to acknowledge them and work with them to find out what is going to be the right thing for you.
Well, traditionally, in many households still, despite the liberation of women, men are taking the lead as far as for investing. And that's not a particularly good thing, particularly in view of the fact that you, the woman, may outlive your husband, in fact, or spouse. There's a good chance that you might do that. And Mary can attest to that, because I think a lot of people think, particularly women with careers, are very involved in the investments, but they may have chosen not to be because they're so busy doing everything else and keeping all the balls in the air.
Well, from my particular position here, for a woman not to, it's not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing, but I think it's understandable because, as we said earlier, women are usually responsible for that which is going on in the household, which can be the children, the social life, the calendar, and so on, in addition to work. And my own situation, which Alex is referencing, is that at some point my husband and I had decided that it would be a good idea for us to have a financial planner, because we really don't have a financial plan. So he took the lead on it, and he located Alex. We met with Alex, and we both agreed that she was the right person for us. Now, the work was essentially done by my husband with Alex. And he always, and with regularity, tried to get me to sit down with him and go over where we were and what maybe we needed to do and what we should think about. And with regularity, I ducked it on the basis of, oh, honey, not today. There's really nothing urgent. I need to do this for the children, or I have to do something else. Then came the day where he suddenly died, and I knew nothing. And Alex knew much more than I did. And Alex was stuck with me, a wreck, who couldn't really make a decision about anything, and really didn't have any idea of what we were talking about. So this was a teacher part of her that had to educate me. But as you can see, now 40 years later, we are both friends and collaborators in this endeavor. So there is hope for everyone if there was hope for me.
Well, it has resulted in a wonderful friendship. But the other part is that's what birthed the book on widows, because Mary was in this situation. My mother was a widow. She was widowed when she was 48, and I was 8, and we had to struggle on our own. And so that's what birthed the book on that, again, talking about the emotional as well as financial situation. Some people have said, well, this is all very well that it's a book for women. Can men benefit from reading it? And the answer is yes, they can. It is specifically trying to address issues that are for women, but there's a lot of general information. In fact, one of the people who reviewed the book on Amazon was a man, and he had recently retired, and he read it and said it really had some information he hadn't thought about. In his particular situation, his wife handled the finances. She handled not only the books, but she also paid attention to the investment. So he had not been involved and found it very useful. And so this is a good, so it can work both ways.
Well, I don't want to leave this with that. People often ask us, is there a magic formula here that we can apply to have a productive and satisfactory retirement? And the answer is no. All women are not created of one mold. Some women are more extroverted, some women are more introverted, some women prefer more outdoor activities, others want internal things. There is no, like, wave a magic wand and you will have a productive retirement. It is a time of looking at how to move forward in a way you were not able to do before in your life. But you need to do the work on your own. We can't provide you with worksheets, even though we do have worksheets to help you identify where you are in this process. But there is no one formula that applies to all women. And one shouldn't look at it that way, because we want to have you maintain your uniqueness.
Well, one of the questions I'm often asked as a financial planner is that if a woman hasn't been involved, is there hope for the future? Well, of course there is. And as I always say, there's nothing in the male genes that makes them better at investments than women. Everybody has a good shot at this. And if they are interested and do want to apply themselves. In fact, Fidelity Investments had a study that they did a couple of years ago. And according to their results, not mine, but according to their results, they said actually women make better investors for the long term than men do. And they said in general, it doesn't apply to everybody, I don't want to offend any of the men in the audience, but in general, women do their research. They take the longer term view. They're focusing on their long-term goals rather than short-term investment results. And on average, they have better results. This is just one study, but I've had clients who have become, because they're widowed or whatever and haven't been involved, say, I want to learn something more about it. What can I do? And I recommend books, and then I work more with them, because if somebody is like Mary, doesn't want to be involved, I can't drag her into the office. But sooner or later, the many women who previously weren't involved become involved. And then, of course, there are the women who have been involved from the start. And that's why no one formula is the answer.
But it's just a question of really identifying where you are and opening as many doors as you can for you to get to wherever it is that you need to get, and to understand what is reality and really what is not reality and is perhaps just a dream. But you can get there on the investments. It's something I certainly didn't know or have really any interest in, as obviously I said, I certainly didn't pay any attention to it. But now I would say I'm in a different position. Would it be my favorite activity? No, but it can be Alex's.
That's why I have a job, so it's okay. As far as, but there are a lot, you're not alone. There are a lot of people to help you. There are the traditional people like the lawyer, the accountant, the financial planner who will help you with your planning. There's a mental health therapist should you need, if you have some trouble with the adjustment to all this. And then in this chapter, which the whole chapter we have on people to help you. One of them is a move manager. Those are people who help you move should you need to downsize or whatever. There are people who pay your bills. If you hate paying bills, you can pay someone to help you do that. So we describe various people and then also say what their qualifications are to do it and then how to find them. And the best way to find them is if you already have an advisor that you ask them for recommendations, and failing that, friends. So make sure the friends are sensible because everybody comes from a different frame of reference, and what might have been good for them might not be good for you. So interview people and use them. But no, you're not alone. You've got a lot of people to help you.
And you have many opportunities too. I mean, you're at a time where there's a lot open to you. So don't lose sight of that.
Well, there is the issue, I hate to say it, that after school, there's a little shock for some people. If you ease into retirement, it's a little easier. But let's say you've been working and your whole identity is in your job, et cetera, and you've just been going full time. And then they say, gee, it's been nice knowing you, and you stop working. And you think, oh, this is great. I don't have to have a schedule. I don't have worry. But unfortunately, what happens after the initial euphoria wears off, some people actually can become depressed. And Mary, how would you help that person?
Well, in that area, it is true that can happen, but there are a number of things that are helpful here. One is pre-planning. So if at all possible, give yourself the opportunity to sort of plan what might be appealing to you and what might not be appealing to you, and give it some serious thought. And also to be mindful of the unexpected that might drop in your lap that you never had any interest in, and find out about how that feels for you. Then there is the question on this is also, which I don't think we should overlook, that there are some women post-retirement from their major career in life will find that they need to work. And then there are others that just enjoy working and look forward to doing some sort of volunteer work that they never had the time to do. And there are other things in terms of managing your own life. And we couldn't leave this area without talking about both exercise and nutrition. Because you hear this all the time, but having some kind of exercise program is a major contribution to well-being, because your body releases endorphins, which help in reducing anxiety and depression. They're not a total solution, but they definitely work. Also, consider your health. Don't take on something that you've always wanted to do in life, but it requires a great deal of physical exertion. Think about where you are physically and try to put things in place that you are going to be able to manage and feel good. So it's just like, if you think you want to begin running, don't start trying to run 5 miles a day, but start with more baby steps. If I'm going to maybe go walking, I'm going to, if I can, maybe I should hire a trainer. I should find out what would be the best thing for me, for you as a person. So I would say being mindful, again, recognizing it's kind of a rite of passage, and an exciting one, and be realistic about what you can accomplish and what you can't, and make changes if you need to make them.
Well, in conclusion of our part of the program, and we're looking forward to your questions, so be aware I can't give any specific investment advice. But anyway, in terms of this, but I think the most important part of the book that retirement, I hope we've gotten this across, is a major transition. It's one of the biggest changes in your life. And our book is designed to help women get through it and be very successful and happy in their retirement.
We want you to really, the main takeaway is this is your next chapter, and it's a wonderful one on the horizon. Make it work for you. Read the book.
Well, thank you both very, very much. I'm now opening the meeting to questions. If anybody, I put it into gallery view. If you'd like to raise your hand if you have a question, I'm happy to unmute you. Martha, did I see you raising a hand? Or, yeah, I'm asking you to unmute and put down your needle point. And let's see. Yes, okay. Okay, give us a second while Martha deals with technology here and tries to unmute.
Let me say one other thing while we're waiting for this. Let me say, on the mental health side, it's not necessary for one to consider any kind of therapy at this juncture in life. But on the other hand, if you're someone that has sought a therapist or some sort of mental health individual with whom they've worked throughout the years, it's a good time to go back to that person, probably just to discuss some of the ideas that you have, particularly those that would attach to change and loss. But sometimes people ask, is it really essential to do that? And the answer is no. But if you have experienced in the past and found it useful, it's probably a good thing to do at this point.
Okay, so let's see. Susan, it looks like you have a question. I'm asking you to unmute. And there you go. Thank you.
All right. Well, certainly an uncertain time, and I'm actually absolutely petrified by what's happening politically, economically. I'm not certain if Social Security is going to be available for us. I don't know what's going to happen to the stock market after the elections. Do you have any words of wisdom to help us navigate these troubled waters?
Yes, see a financial advisor that can help you, because it is troubling times. There's a lot going on, and COVID has made it worse because it gave us more time to sit and think about it, about what all the consequences are. But I do think that if you can have a good financial advisor who can help and hold your hand and who is experienced in this field, I know I have to speak from that point of view, but that's our job, is to look at your situation and say, it may not be as bad as you think, or maybe you want to be more in cash. As I said, I'm not allowed to give investment advice.
But also, just to add to this issue, I think it's important to recognize you're not alone here. We're all sort of trying to deal with this on the emotional side because so much is unsettled. And one of the hardest things for anybody to deal with, honestly, is being in limbo. And we are really in limbo today because, as you have indicated, we don't know what's going to happen. But again, the best thing you can do for yourself is try to plan as well as you can without really knowing how it will all turn out. And get some support. It's probably good to maybe talk to friends. It's always good to have people to talk to on this.
Thank you. Are there other questions on retirement or planning? Oh, it was a very thorough presentation. Oh, wait, Martine, thank you. Martine, I'm asking you to unmute. Please unmute your computer so that we can hear your question. Thank you.
Right. Yes. Alexandra, I think I know you from a long time. I've been reading your column in the investment, Better Investing or something like that.
Yeah,
when I
was
educating myself. I was educating myself financially, and I was invited to join 2 investment clubs actually. And that was some years ago. And I must say, I'm not the kind to invest in stocks and so on, but I learned a lot because we were, studying the stock market, but also it was interesting as a social group to know, and they were experts in real estate, experts in travel things, and it was only women. It was a woman club, you know, and I enjoyed this sort of learning. And of course, we had the software, we had the magazine, and I found your name from time to time. I would read what you said, and the magazine, of course, is great to educate ourselves. So I enjoyed, but for some reason I had to quit. But I wonder, would you recommend this today for new retiree?
Oh, I definitely would recommend it. I would definitely recommend it for the investment clubs. You know, they had, and a lot of them, again, the women's investment clubs were particularly good. I don't know if some of you remember the Beardstown Ladies. There was a group of women who knocked the ball out of the park with their investment recommendation, what they did. And it's a great way to learn in that you meet once a month, and there's a structured way to analyze stocks, and you've got to follow the view, and you've got to report to the group. I should have mentioned that before. I'm glad you brought that up because I think they're great. I've actually written that column for 40 years. I've had other people in my firm help me, but I'm still writing it. And I really enjoy it. I write it on financial planning topics, but no, it's a wonderful thing. And it's both male and female and mixed groups, but women particularly have learned a lot because it's a safe environment where they can not feel stupid if they ask a question. It's just lack of knowledge in something. It is, and as I said, it can be easy. You can easily learn something. So thank you for bringing that up, Martine.
And I just want to say, as you mentioned, I think this would be a good thing to consider. It's the camaraderie. Whether you're going to actually do a particular thing or not, it's a good idea to be, okay, I seem to be back on. Anyway, it's a good idea to talk to other people and hear other people's ideas in a group such as that.
And then you become friends, or maybe you started around sort of like a book club in that you develop mutual interests and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say some of my best clients were investment club members, and it was such a relief that they knew so much about it that I didn't have to explain a lot of things because they'd already done it in their investment club.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I have another question. Carol Kelly wanted to ask a question. Carol, I see you've unmuted. There you go.
Yes, thank you, Lynn, very much. And thank you to both of the authors for joining us for another incredible session for the Georgetown Village and greater community in Hillendale. I did read your book. I found it very useful. Thank you for publishing it and for the advice you provide. I want to ask you a question that I've asked in a few other venues where people are talking about finances during the crisis in which we find ourselves. And it's a pretty obvious question. There's a dichotomy between what you see happening on Wall Street and the slowdown in the economy and the unemployment numbers. And I haven't really heard a good reason for why Wall Street has maintained and taken off, and yet the economy as a whole is going through such a struggle. Do either of you have any thoughts on that at this point that kind of makes
Yes, I do. And I will say that us financial planners have been shaking our heads for a while. However, the answer that most people, the consensus seems to be, the market usually anticipates what's going on 6 months in advance. So what it's saying, rightly or wrongly, is that 6 months from now we'll be in better shape than we are now. Now, as I said, it's rightly or wrongly. And as I said, I can't give investment advice, but it's not a bad time to have some cash. That's all I can say.
Well, I do talk regularly to my investment advisor, and I do have at least a couple of years of cash right now. So
right, that's good, because then you, if you got good stuff, as I said, it's been what I've done for 40 years. I said, if you've got good stuff, hold it and keep on holding it. But if you're speculating, as already some people have gotten caught in that, unfortunately. So if you have good stuff, do that, and then keep a cash reserve so that you don't have to sell something if you need some money.
thank you, very useful.
Well, I would like to say that I endorse financial advisors, and without promoting too much, Alex has really given me both peace of mind and directions. And I really urge anyone to really do consider getting a financial advisor. I mean, we're all wise and we're all smart in our own ways. But having another set of eyes, professional eyes, looking at our finances is critical and helpful, and it really does give peace of mind.
And thank you, Kay.
Absolutely.
And I'm retired, so this is not an endorsement for me. So,
I think that's great advice. I'm going to call on Gail, and then Francis I see your hand and you're next.
I just wanted to say perhaps a little bit of a plug for Georgetown Village. First of all, thank you. It was an excellent, I mean, Leslie and I've talked for so many years about when will Alex be able to speak to Georgetown Village, and
Yeah.
it's just wonderful, both of you, to do this for us today. You mentioned that one of the options for people to think about is how to get involved, perhaps in a charity or an organization. And I think by volunteering and tasting what it's like in several organizations is one of the privileges that you might have upon retirement, when it may seem very, very frightening that all of a sudden you will have whole days with nothing scheduled. And particularly now that looms in sort of a closed-in way. And so, of course, I have to suggest that some of you may want to just try being volunteers for Georgetown Village to learn what it's like. But there are other many, many wonderful organizations that would love your help. And it's all about fundraising for most organizations, but there's also opportunities for your leadership and your knowledge from your past careers, and places where you can be valuable and feel like you're still helping to get done whatever you've spent your life enjoying doing. So
It's also staying involved. It's allowing you to stay involved in what you enjoy.
yes.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask Francis, I saw you had a hand up as well, and then Tina.
Yes, I'm going to put in a couple of plugs here. First of all, for Alex, I am her client now, but there's a long story there. When I first retired, I was looking around for something to do. And so I picked on something completely different, which was learning how to become a financial planner. And I took classes in this, which completely consumed my life for several years, and found it a really fascinating field. And, you know, information interview with Alex, which was just lovely. We became friends, and subsequently I became her client. And I still am in that firm, and this has just been so helpful. And then now a plug for the village. A couple of the things that I certainly didn't anticipate, but I'm finding it's, you know, constantly learning about, is changes in technology. And technology is so absolutely essential to socializing and just basically being in touch and managing one's life. And the village helps with tech help and transportation for medical things. That's been incredibly helpful for me. And these are things that happen as one ages. Transportation for lifting something very heavy, which I needed last week. And the village has just been, and then all of these evenings, these cocktails, meetings, and so forth have just been wonderful. So putting in a couple of plugs here. Thanks.
Sorry, I was having trouble with technology. You'll forgive me.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I believe I saw Tina's hand up. Tina, and you have unmuted. Great. Thank
Yes. Hi, thank you very much. 30 years ago, I was working at the Federal Reserve Board, so you might have thought I knew something about money, but I didn't. And I thought it would be, I was going to be leaving, and I was uncertain about what to do, you know, with various funds and whether to keep my pension and things like that. And so I asked around to colleagues, like, do you have a financial planner? And so many people said to me, what do you need a financial planner for? Just read Money Magazine. They'll tell you everything you need to know. And I thought, I don't think that's gonna work. And at that point, Alexander, I believe you were writing a column for Ms. Magazine, which I had seen, and found your company, and went, and we've been using your partnership ever since, and it just puts a lot of things at ease, at peace, and I just wanted to say thank you. So.
Oh my goodness, thank you very much. It makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions? And it looks like we do not have any other questions. So I will again add my thanks to everyone else. Oh, I'm sorry, Janine Wilson, I see you have a hand up. So, and I've unmuted you if you'd like to ask your question.
Yes, hey. This has been really informative for me, so thank you. And I was very intrigued by Martine's talking about an investment group. And how do you go about finding one and making sure you're finding the right one and good people to meet with and do this?
Well, there's national associations called National Association of Investment Clubs, not a very original title, but it's based in the Midwest. I think it's Michigan. And they can put you in touch with it. And they're regional groups. They're in Maryland, Virginia, et cetera. Some are looking for some people to join them. Other people aren't, you know, some have a closed group, sort of like book clubs, you know, you have to wait 5 years to join them, but not with investment clubs. But you can try and find somebody, one that is open, et cetera. Actually, Georgetown Village could think about putting together one.
Good. Absolutely. There's enough interest for our members to have a group. We'd be happy to help them organize.
And then National Association Investment Club gives you all the tools. You know, you join them and then they give you all the tools to work on it. So Martine can help you there.
Oh, great, because I don't know anything about that. And I'm trying to get better, so.
But you will. Hang in there.
Thanks.
You will.
And the fact that you joined us tonight shows you're on the right track.
Well, I'll tell you how I learned about this was through Martin's, you know, the restaurant email list.
The tavern, yeah.
Yeah, I love their emails. They're so informative, so thanks.
They're great about publicizing our program, so that's great.
One of my favorite watering holes.
For many of us. We miss going there. Okay, before, and I don't want to cut anybody off, are there any other questions or comments that we have while we have these experts with us? And if not, then I do thank them, and I thank them on your behalf as well as on behalf of the village, our board, our members, and our volunteers. And thank you all for participating this evening. We really appreciate your participation. We appreciate your support. It's through our donations that we're able to offer these programs. So please remember us and think of us when you go to make your donations. And have a lovely evening, and we hope you'll join us. Our next program is on September 30th, and Isabel Sawhill will be speaking. She's a senior fellow for the Brookings Institute, as well as a member of Georgetown Village. And she's going to be speaking on a new contract for the middle class. I guarantee you that'll be a very interesting discussion. That'll be Wednesday, September 30th at 5:30. Please send an email. We will send you the sign-in information, and we hope to see you joining us for that as well. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.